The results from the NFL weekend while the Ravens were on a bye, the results are in. And let me tell you, there's some good news and there's some bad news, but I think there's more good than bad in terms of the Ravens playoff picture. I am ready to go on this Monday morning after the bye. This is the last day of Solo Sarah. Bobby Trossett will be back from his vacation in Sweden. So I can't wait to reintroduce him, get him back in here, have some fun debates, and get into Giants Week as that kicks off this week. Welcome into the vault. I am Sarah Ellison, and I'm super excited to get into not just the playoff picture and all these games that happen and how they impact and how we can look at them through a Ravens perspective, but Cam Newton. I don't know if you guys have seen his podcast yet, 4th and 1. He goes on an epic rant that I absolutely loved. I feel like he was preaching things that I've been preaching, but with some different words in a Cam Newton kind of way, and I really think they hit home. There are lots of different snippets out there, but I went and I watched the whole show. We're going to break down a lot of it. We're not just going to take one snippet. We're going to look at 3 different snippets and what he says there. The Athletic did a NFL player poll, anonymous player poll. So we're going to go through some of the questions there, especially the ones that are Ravens related. And then, as always, we've got some quick hits at the end. And before I forget, because I often do, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to our patrons off the top. Christian Almgren and Jimmy Rice, thank you for supporting the vault and all that you do. Much appreciated. We can't do the show without supporters like all of you, the patrons, all of you that are here every day. We appreciate you. All right, let's get into it. The Baltimore Ravens playoff picture. It improved. But that doesn't mean that everything's on the table for them, but everything that was realistic going into this bye week, the Ravens still control with their own destiny. So let's kind of dig into this a little bit. And by the way, tonight's Monday night game with the Bengals up against the Cowboys, I believe, it's really not going to shift the playoff picture much at all. So last night was the big game that really impacted the Ravens seeding in the playoff picture. When the Chargers lost to the Chiefs, the Ravens moved up from the 6th seed to the 5th seed. So prior to this weekend, they were number 6, and had the playoffs ended before this bye week, they would have gone to Pittsburgh in the wild card round. But that head-to-head win that the Ravens got over the Chargers on Monday Night Football was huge because they owned the tiebreaker over the Chargers, both now at 8-5. The Ravens move up to the 5th seed. So if the playoffs started today, they would be going up against the Texans. Here's the funny thing. Everybody that's in those top 4 slots would be a rematch for the Ravens. In fact, everybody in the top 7 slots would be a rematch for the Ravens, whether they were to meet the Chiefs, the Bills, the Steelers, the Texans, the Broncos, the Chargers. Ravens have or will have played them all. Texans are the only one the Ravens haven't played yet. That'll happen on Christmas Day. So no matter what happens with these 7, they can move around, but the Ravens are going to have a rematch in the playoffs more than once. Okay? So that's the good news. They move up to the 5th seed. The bad news is what we had predicted, that there was no way that the Browns were going to get that sweep against the Steelers. Would have been nice, would have been joyful, would have been fun to watch the Steelers be sulky and upset this morning, but that was not the case. Steelers took care of business at home, which means that they've moved 2 games ahead of the Ravens. But that's okay. We knew that that was probably going to happen. So what matters going forward is that the Ravens control their own destiny. They got a week of rest. They're going to come out against an opponent that is not doing so well. We'll look at them in just a second. So here's a great look of the chances of which seeds the Ravens could end up in. Okay. First seed is pretty much Out of the question. They're less than a 0.1% chance of winning the first seed. That's why it's actually a good thing to see the Chiefs, and we'll dig into that game, somehow pull it off in the end with the doink. Okay, but it was actually a good thing because the Ravens aren't catching the first seed. It's not going to happen. The playoffs are going to run through Arrowhead. However, having the Chargers take a step back was good for the Ravens. Ravens only have a 4.5% chance of winning that number 2 seed. That's likely going to go to the Bills with the 55% chance for the Bills. Okay. Number 4 seed, also not very likely at 2.2%. Now that number 3 seed is what the Ravens could grab onto. Still only at a 12.4% chance, but they can take it over from the Steelers. What matters is that head-to-head matchup after the Giants game. They're going to have their rematch. And the Ravens can, if they beat the Steelers, it doesn't mean that they'll automatically win the North. But boy, will their chances go up. Okay. Right now, the chance is only 19.1% that the Ravens win the North. You beat the Steelers head to head, those chances are going to go way up. Their chances of making the playoffs overall, 97.2%. Okay. Base almost 100%. So right now, it's less of a question of if they make the playoffs, but what seed they are. The best chances of the seeds that they end up in, first is the number 5 seed. They have a 41.5% chance to stay in the number 5 seed and that they are in this morning. Next best chance is the number 6 seed at 28.7%. But the Ravens, make no mistake, are eyeing that division. They're eyeing the division, about a 20% chance of doing that. All right. Whereas it's the Steelers to keep that number 3 seed, 47.7% chance. It's all going to come down to that. And that's coming out of this weekend. Can you ask for anything more? It would have been nice if the Steelers lost, but that wasn't realistic. We knew that wasn't realistic, that the Browns somehow upset them twice. So I feel like realistically, they're in the best spot they could be coming out of that. All right. Now let's dig into this Chiefs Chargers game right after I get to the super chat. Jay Blackman says, y'all seen Henry cut his hair? It's over with. I did not see him cut his hair. Ooh, somebody put a link in the comment section so I can see that. I got to see that. I want to see that. All right. Chiefs, if you watched the game last night, back and forth game, Chiefs start out with the lead, pretty comfortable lead. Chargers start storming back. And then they take the lead. But in true Chiefs fashion, the Chiefs get the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hand. Not an explosive offense. Not at all. Not this year. But he methodically moves the ball down the field, drain the clock, and then what do you know? The third string kicker. You can't make this stuff up. Chiefs are down by 1. They need the field goal to win it. Patrick Mahomes successfully erases all the time so that Herbert doesn't get another chance the other way. This guy, Matthew Wright, their third string kicker, looks like it's pulling left, and then the biggest doink you're going to hear. It's as big as you can. It doinks in through the goalposts. Field goal is in. Referee's hands go up, signaling it's good. Matthew, right after the game, completely just relieved, wiping the sweat from his brow, is quoted as saying, I'm just glad it went in. I wish it went down right down the middle, but 3 is 3. Every kick is a little nerve-wracking. That was a little extra nerve-wracking. Here's what's crazy, as Steve from PFF points out. The Chiefs are 5-0 this season, where a team was in game-winning field goal range of the final play. Yeah, they're 5-0, but guess what? Those happened 5 times. They've only been the kicking team on 3 of them. Where does this keep coming from? How does this happen? You can't make this up. Matthew Wright, check this out. Since Harrison Butker went down, they've had 3 separate kickers hit a game winner for them this year. Harrison Butker kicked a 51-yarder. Spencer Schrader, who I think he was injured, or for whatever reason, he was either injured or they just demoted him and put Matthew Wright in. He kicked one from 33 yards, and now Matthew Wright kicks one from 31 yards. Look at the reaction from both sidelines. Andy Reid, man, he cracks me up. He for sure is the Kool-Aid man with the mustache. Love him. Love him. He came to my Faith in Football event in Baltimore. Such a cool dude. But boy, do I not like his team. Look at him smiling. Harrison Butker smiling. Jim Harbaugh, devastated. Herbert, devastated. And who is this Matthew Wright, you ask? Since the Ravens are having such kicking woes? Matthew Wright. Oh, he's got a LinkedIn right there. Systems engineer and NFL kicker. Working at Lockheed Martin. Now, he's been around. I believe he's been on 8 different teams. But this systems engineer that's worked for Lockheed Martin, he's 11 for 12 on field goals this year, 5 for 5 on extra points. And that's across both when he's been with the Chiefs and 49ers this year. His only miss this year, a 59-yarder. He's now 54 of 62, which is 87% in 21 career games over the last 5 seasons. This is why I keep saying, bring somebody into the practice squad. I understand Justin Tucker is Justin Tucker, and I'm behind him. If he's out there, I'm behind him 1,000%, and I'm not calling for him to be cut. I am not doing that. But I don't understand why you can't bring somebody in on the practice squad. John Harbaugh said he was open to it. There was no such news over the weekend. No such news. I don't even see any news about them working out any kickers. Why not? Lockheed Martin guy, Matthew Wright, he's kicking it. And as we saw over the weekend, the Vikings cut their kicker, Parker Romo. He was waived. And as Samuel Njoku of at Ravens Talk Pod on Ravens Twitter, he says Parker was 11 of 12 during his stint in Minnesota, including a 55-yarder. There's nothing wrong with putting the kicker on the practice squad to have insurance. We're seeing that it's paid dividends for the Chiefs. It could pay dividends for the Ravens. Now, Chiefs move to 12-1 on the season. Rex Ryan, former Ravens defensive coordinator, for weeks has been saying he's not a believer in the Chiefs. Not yet. Even though they have sealed their 9th straight division championship. They're back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Did yesterday's win change Rex Ryan's opinion? He's been saying they're vulnerable. It's going to catch up to them. They can't keep leaving it for the last second of the game. Has it changed his opinion? Here he is on First Take on ESPN this morning.
I've been sitting back, and for 5 straight weeks, I've been critical of this football team, and I'm like, man, there's no way they're not knocking anybody out, because they don't. And here's the thing that I look at. It's why I think they're vulnerable. And they're vulnerable to any team. And I've said that before, any team. Because teams you think they're going to blow out, they don't. And here's why. They are the least explosive offense in the National Football League. That's a crazy stat. You have one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen, and you don't have any explosives on offense. Sure. Now, part of that is, and Dano, you and I talked about, that's because they don't protect the quarterback. And so to me, you're still not protecting the quarterback and all that. And Shannon, I've had to stop a lot of teams as coordinator, head coach, whatever. I'd sign up any day of the week to play against Kansas City right now. Okay, I would. But in the last 2 minutes, oh, hell no, I don't want to sign up to play that guy. No chance. And you're right. If they needed a touchdown, Shannon, they would have got right down the field and scored a touchdown. Because that is who Patrick Mahomes is. I don't think you can keep it within a 1-score game. I think you got to be up 10 points or so like that against them. So are there teams capable of doing it? They certainly are. I think Baltimore's capable. I think the way Pittsburgh's playing, they're starting to be capable, and I definitely think Buffalo's capable. So we'll see at the end of the day.
Okay, so he says both Buffalo and Baltimore are capable of knocking off this vulnerable Chiefs team. Listen, a lot of what Rex is saying here is true. When you don't have a left tackle to protect your quarterback, or you don't have a super explosive downfield consistent threat, the Chiefs aren't consistent. Okay. And he's saying at some point this is going to catch up to him. So he's not changing his tune. He's not. He still believes they're vulnerable. He's sticking by it, even though they keep defying him week in and week out. So they definitely are vulnerable. But you know what? They were vulnerable last year too. And all they did was win the Super Bowl. So the key to beating the Chiefs, as Rex said, it cannot be a one-score game. You cannot make it to where, because the whole point is, yes, they're vulnerable. And yes, you can say they got lucky with all these kickers and blocking field goals and making one off of a doink. Yeah, there's some luck to that. But the fact of the matter is I watched that game last night. And they put it in Patrick Mahomes' hands. And he did exactly what he needed to do to put his team in a position. As Rex said, he doesn't want to coach against the Chiefs the last 2 minutes. All the rest of the time, give me to Patrick Mahomes. He says, give me this offense. I would love to coach against him. I got this. But in a one-score game with 2 minutes left, that's the key. Are you a good enough team to get a 2-score lead on them? If you can do that, then you can stiff-arm Patrick Mahomes from doing magic and putting these kickers in 30-yard chip shots. And listen, if they needed to score a touchdown, I think Patrick could have done that too. You got to get a bigger lead on the Chiefs if you want to knock them off. So for me, I'm not as confident as Rex. Yes, they're vulnerable. But I don't know that anybody in Baltimore could be super confident after what happened in Baltimore in the divisional round, or excuse me, in the AFC Championship against the Chiefs. Let's move on to the next game that is very pertinent to the Ravens. The Bills were knocked off. So I got this prediction wrong. I think it's the only prediction I got wrong of the ones I did last week on Friday. Okay. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills were knocked off by the Rams. I said on Friday, be careful because the more desperate team could win, but I still picked the Bills. I was wrong to do that. I should have gone with the more desperate team because the Rams, they are very much in the fight to winning their division and may have put themselves in a position to win their division. But Josh Allen in this game, we got to give credit where credit's due. He was 22 of 37, put up 342 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, plus 82 rush yards, and 3 more rushing touchdowns. So he was the first player in NFL history to post 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in a single game. So credit where credit's due. But here's where this actually helps Lamar Jackson. Let's blow this up a little bit bigger. Josh Allen's betting odds went up in a loss. It went up. And I get it. It's because of those stats. So he was minus 175 entering week 14, and now he's minus 400. I don't know where Lamar falls in that yet. I'm sure we'll get that later this week. As Trey Wingo said after tweeting after the game, he said, Josh, he gave the stats again. And he said, yet another example of why wins and losses are not a QB stat. I mean, that's true. It's not a QB stat. We know that. We know that Josh Allen's defense let him down. The punting units let him down. His coach let him down. But it's also true that the quarterback has the most impact on the wins and losses, for sure. Okay. Now, Aaron Schatz, who is an MVP voter, and you remember him because you're probably still angry at him. He was the one vote last year that went against Lamar Jackson last year. And so Lamar didn't get his second unanimous MVP. But Aaron makes some sense on this tweet last night. He said Josh Allen was absolutely fantastic during this Rams win, but the fact that it was a Rams win demonstrates why MVP is about more than the win-loss record, which ironically helps make Lamar Jackson's case as much as Josh Allen's case. Now listen, there's a limit to that. Joe Burrow and his team, which I don't even remember what their record is at this point, but they're a losing team. You cannot lose as much as Burrow and the Bengals have and still be considered a legit contender for MVP. To be valuable to your team has to, in part, say that you're lifting them up to win. So the win-loss record has to be accounted for. However, if you're going to have Josh Allen's odds go up in a loss, then yes, I agree with Aaron Schatz. That should help Lamar then. That should help Lamar. If nobody's being completely dominant and you're within a game or two of each other and you're both the reason that you are winning and get to the playoffs, then there's less of an emphasis on the record. So Aaron Schatz, an MVP voter, making a good case for Lamar. Now, one other thing about Josh that ticked me off, but hey, veteran savvy moves. I'm just pointing this out so that if the Ravens face him again in the playoffs, let's not forget this guy is a flopping machine.
Right there and
look at that.
Little acting job.
Little acting job? Look at this. Rams defender barely touches him with his helmet, and Josh flips back as if he's been in some sort of car accident. And remember, he did that against Matabike too. Matabike barely put his hand on him, and then Josh all of a sudden flails and puts his arms out, okay? On one end, it's weak. And on the other end, it can be smart if you get a flag. So I'll just say this. We can talk about how weak it is. We're looking like soccer players out here flopping and whining. Hate it. But if it draws a flag, you got to be smarter. Ravens defenders, if they face him again in the playoffs, they got to be smart and not to do any sort of ticky-tack touches that don't mean anything, because Josh is going to milk it. He's going to milk it. Now, one other thing I want to talk about here. You'll remember that Shannon Sharpe often takes Lamar Jackson to task if he's had a good game, but the Ravens lose. The question is he going to have consistency with Josh Allen? So, of course, First Take comes on this morning at about 10 a.m. If you didn't watch it, no worries. I got your back. I got the pertinent stuff for you. Okay? So, Dan Orlovsky famously always sticks up for quarterbacks, including Lamar Jackson, when they play well, but their team loses the game. Okay? So, starting from the top of the show, Dan asked Shannon, are you going to blame this loss on Josh Allen? And Shannon's like, no, I'm not going to blame it on Josh Allen. So they leave it there for a second. But then Shannon couldn't help himself, which I appreciate because I want consistency. While I don't agree with him overall, I appreciate the consistency because look at him take Josh Allen to task despite his 6 touchdowns. And by the way, to 0 interceptions.
Allen was sensational. But the one thing that you can't do is spot a team 14 points on the road. Now, this is what we know about the Rams. The Rams scored on 6 of their first 9 possessions. How many of those possessions did the Buffalo Bills match that production?
Probably a bunch.
Wait, I want to call timeout on this right now. Hold on.
I'm just asking, how did the score get to be 24-10 when you don't play make it, take it in the NFL?
So you are attempting to pin some of this on.
No, I believe that he played sensational. 2 things can be true. Can they not? Josh played well, but can you spot a team 14 points on the road?
I think the game got to 17-7 because the Rams were up 10-7.
It was 24-10 at one point.
Okay. So I appreciate the consistency from Shannon Sharpe here. He has blamed the Bengals' losses on Joe Burrow, and that's why this whole thing came up. Dan brought it up because they had a big argument last week about Joe Burrow, and Shannon Sharpe was like, no, it's Joe Burrow's fault. Wow, that's a crazy statement to me. It's a crazy statement to me. Could Joe Burrow have done more? I guess, but he's already doing the most, right? Same with Josh Allen. Same with Lamar Jackson. So Dan and Shannon are having consistency, which I appreciate. So here's Shannon. And by the way, Shannon's point here is he got the score wrong, though. At one point, it was 31-14. Now, Dan is trying to pin it on that blocked punt, which, of course, is part of it. Of course, is part of it. They returned a blocked punt for a touchdown, but then they got back right into it. Where it got out of reach for the Bills was between the end of the second quarter and the beginning of the third, when the Bills had a punt twice and the Rams had 2 unanswered touchdowns. That's where it got away from him. And so his point here is like Josh Allen left some meat on the bone right there. Yes, he had 6 touchdowns, but he left some meat on the bone. Now, if Shannon was doing that to Lamar, I would disagree with him. So I disagree with him overall about it's just like you keep expecting more and more and more and more from the quarterbacks, but aren't taking to task the punt team or the defense or their coach, which, by the way, I do think that if you guys watched that game, McDermott went for a QB sneak instead of a pass, which made them waste a timeout, which means that it forced them to do an onside kick instead of a kickoff and having three timeouts to see if your defense could get a stop and then give it back to Josh. I hear you that McDermott should have done that, but everybody's acting like it was going to be automatic that they stopped him 3 times and then Josh would get another chance. Like either way, I don't know that Josh was even going to have a chance to try to get a comeback win. So while I agree that it was the wrong call, I also think that like the weight of it is being exaggerated, I would say. So anyway, just want to point out to you that sometimes these guys are consistent. So as much as Shannon Sharpe calls out Lamar, I think he's taking Josh to task also in a 6 touchdown game. But in the end, fine, let his MVP odds go up. But if that's the way we're going to do it, then it can't be all about win-loss record. It can't be all about win-loss record because, again, Patrick Mahomes has a better win-loss record. So that actually helps Lamar Jackson's case. And I want him to win the 3rd MVP, even though some of you claim that you don't care. Okay, next game I want to take a look at real quick before we move on to Cam Newton here. Mentioned off the top, the Steelers did indeed take care of business, and it wasn't even close. The Browns did not have a good game. They lost to the Steelers 27-14. So the Browns were officially eliminated from playoff contention. Okay. So according to Jeff Zrebeck, he says he believes that win for the Steelers means that regardless of what happens this next week, okay, when the Ravens play the Giants and the Steelers take on the Eagles, come on, Eagles, let's go. Regardless of what happens there, the Steelers can win the AFC North by beating the Ravens in their next matchup. The reverse is not true. The Ravens will need to win that, plus need the Steelers to lose more. Okay? But in the end, though, take care of business. None of this matters. Take care of business. None of it matters if you don't take care of business. So take care of business against the Giants and then take care of business against the Steelers. That's it. And if the Steelers sweep the Ravens, then they deserve the AFC North. They deserve it. You can't be swept and then expect to be the division winner. The Ravens need to come back and they need to put their foot in the ground. They need to forget about this history. They need to put an end to this history. The Steelers have won 8 of the last 9 versus the Ravens, with every game decided by 1 score. What does that tell me? 8 out of 9, you lose in 1-score games. That's a mental thing. Finish against that coach. And to me, that's huge on John Harbaugh. Big time. As Jonas Schaefer points out on Twitter, with that Steelers win over Cleveland, the Ravens AFC title odds shrunk. So they entered in, I think he means AFC North title odds. So they entered in with a 40% chance and it went down to a 30% chance. Again, doesn't matter. It's still in your control. Take care of business. Beat the Giants, beat the Steelers, run the table. And when you look at this remaining schedule for the Steelers, ESPN is projecting that the Steelers only go 2 for 2 in their last 4 games. Check out this over the next 10 days. From December 15th, December 21st, December 25th. That's 10 days. In 10 days, the Steelers have to go to Philadelphia, go to Baltimore, then on Christmas Day, host the Chiefs. Then they get the Bengals on January 5th. Okay. Now, again, this is important because you need the Steelers to do more than just lose to you head to head. And so you're going to have one eye on the Steelers. But if you're inside that building, it's what Lamar Jackson said. It's not about the Steelers. It's about what we do. It's about what we do. So inside the building, you take care of business. All of us in the media and in the fans, we can keep one eye on the Steelers. But their next 10 days are absolutely brutal. Let's check in on some more super chats. Rave Kingdom says, surely hope Ravens made changes during bye week. Yeah, I had Ken McCusick on Friday. We went through position by position the changes that we hope to see. The one I wanted where they bring in a kicker doesn't look like, I mean, I guess they could still try out somebody today. But there was no news that they did so last week. You think that would have hit the news wire had it happened. Dream says, not having the Ravens play on my birthday weekend, 12/7, definitely saved me a heart attack, but it's back to business this week. Dreams, happy birthday. I hope it was a good one. Certainly football-wise, nothing really happened to make you not have a happy birthday. So good for you. Okay, one last thing I want to point out here with the playoffs. The Ravens are more battle-tested than anybody else in the entire conference. Check this out. These are all the AFC leaders on the right-hand side, and then you see the top 4 of the leaders of the divisions, and then you see the wild cards, okay? Look at the strength of schedule that everybody has had up to this point. Chiefs, their strength of schedule that they've played against, number 25. Bills, number 21. Steelers, number 32. Texans, number 24. I'll skip the Ravens for a second. Chargers, number 19. Broncos, number 26. Ravens, number 6 strength of schedule. One of these strengths of schedules is not like the others. The Ravens have absolutely been battle tested. And if you're asking why, like, the Chiefs are the Super Bowl champs. Why didn't they have the toughest strength of schedule? Well, remember, they do it based off of last year. But this is a year-to-year league. Heck, it's a week-to-week league. So this is what it turned out to be, even though it wasn't the way it was last year. The Ravens have had the 6th hardest schedule. And the next closest team in the AFC is who? The Chargers at number 19. So when I tell you that the Ravens are battle tested, Kyle Hamilton will tell you the same thing.
Record may show we have 5 losses, and I'm not gonna make excuses for that. I still do think that we have a good chance to win the Super Bowl. It's our goal, obviously, and I feel like vibe-wise, it's a different vibe this year because we didn't really face too much adversity last year.
Right.
Like, we were just rolling from the jump. So, yeah, I think we'll be better for that.
Yeah, they will be better for that. And maybe the Packers will too, because the Packers are in the same type of position as the Ravens in the NFC. They have had the 4th toughest schedule. The next highest among the playoff teams, projected playoff teams at this point, is the Bucs at number 12. If the Ravens get punched in the mouth, and everybody will in the playoffs, they should by then know how to absorb a punch and deliver one right back. One last thing. The Giants, the Ravens' next opponent, only put up 11 points. Woof. And by the way, their opponent in the Saints only put up 14 points. Woof. The other team only puts up 14 points and you've lost. And by the way, the Giants were eliminated before even this game. They were eliminated after Thanksgiving. This is, I mean, you kind of wish that you could have the Steelers first coming out of the bye week, but might as well get the ball rolling. I want the Ravens to obliterate these guys, get some good juices flowing. You got your rest, get your good juices going, and then let's give a not so friendly welcome to the Steelers the next week. All right, now is the time that we switch over to Cam Newton. Before I do that, one last super chat. Edwin Rice says, we can beat anyone, anywhere if we play smart ball. Edwin, you and Bill Belichick have been saying the same thing. The only people that can beat the Ravens are the Ravens. The Ravens are good enough, but they got to get their own way. Justin Tucker's got to get himself together, and they got to put together a full game. The defense has finally come on, and the offense trailed off. They just flipped positions, and the special teams has got to get it together. Absolutely. Now, one of the keys to the offense becoming more consistent, one of the keys is what I've been talking about for a minute now. And again, Lamar Jackson is the reason the Ravens are even in a good position in the first place. But we've been talking about his ability to run and how he and Todd Monken have not leaned into that very much since, the Chiefs game in week 1? Maybe there's another game that I'm forgetting. Cam Newton was preaching to my ears and to the world, and I completely agree with him on his 4th and 1 podcast. He was preaching. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with his reaction to remember Lamar Jackson's last time at podium after that Eagles loss, and him revealing what his mom said to him after the game. This is Cam Newton's reaction. I've got 3 clips from this podcast because I think all of it's very important. So let's start with this up top where he reacts to Lamar Jackson's press conference.
Back, you feel like there were some opportunities to run today for you that you may have passed up?
Yeah, my mama just told me that. She just cussed me out. So like I'm mad. So like we gonna get after it, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. We gonna get after it.
What did she cuss you out about?
She said it was lanes I should have took and ran. But I was just trying to let guys develop routes. We had developing routes. I was just trying to go through my progression. But yeah, she right. I'm gonna do my
Lamar Jackson beats to the rhythm of his own drum. Yeah. He don't really get into what the crowd does. He's his own individual. So much so that you really haven't seen Lamar Jackson in a lot of national campaigns.
That is true.
Because Lamar Jackson wants to stay focused on being the best football player that he possibly can be. But there's one specific figure that always seems to get mentioned with his counsel. It stops and starts with his mom. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, just play it back with no audio. Just play it back. Cut the audio off. Now I'm going to ask you this, Peggy, right there. Do you think he playing?
No, he ain't playing. You can see with the hand motion, the shaking back for the rubbing of the face, he ain't playing.
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, like you see his,
So that's my point. Mama mean business.
Mama does mean business. Mama means business. I liked what he said off the top. Lamar Jackson is his own individual. He's certainly, of those that I've covered, one of those guys that is just phenomenal at blocking out the noise, which has to happen. I'm part of the noise. Maybe he considers Cam part of the noise, but I know his mom's not part of the noise. And that's what he says. He said there, Lamar doesn't kowtow to the crowd. He's his own individual. But if there's one person that has Lamar Jackson's ear, we all know it's Miss Felicia Jones, his mother. And so he can read it in Lamar's body language. He can hear it in the way he relays the story of his mom cussing him out. It's time to stop messing around and get going. And when you have those lanes, you take them. Now, this next clip is what I have been saying to not just NFL media, but to Ravens fans themselves. Not all of you, but those of you who are ashamed or don't celebrate every time Lamar Jackson sets a milestone with his legs. Social media has successfully shamed most of Ravens fans into not celebrating or wanting to use Lamar Jackson's legs. I can tell you when I've put tweets out of milestones of Lamar Jackson breaking. Earlier this year, he surpassed a few players, including Cam Newton, in all-time rushing yards. I put those out, barely a peep. Couple of likes, couple retweets, but doesn't rise to any sort of, celebration level. The way if I put out a tweet, if Lamar throws for a Jackson 5, which is phenomenal, celebrate that too. But those Lamar RB comments out in social media, it worked on everybody. Not everybody, most everybody. Because now we don't even want to celebrate what he can do with his legs. Cam Newton had the perfect message about what he can do with his legs.
My whole thing with Lamar Jackson has been this. He is the greatest dual threat quarterback to ever play this game, bar none.
By the way, I saw a comment in the chat saying that Cam Newton is jealous. Cam Newton is far from jealous of Lamar Jackson. In fact, he's one of his biggest cheerleaders. When asked on this very podcast earlier this season, one of his co-hosts were like, "No, you're the greatest." No, Lamar Jackson is the greatest running quarterback of all time. Don't put my name in there. Michael Vick has said the same thing. We were great, but we're not Lamar Jackson. This man is not jealous. This man is a cheerleader. He's had talent like Lamar with his legs, but he recognizes that it's not at the same degree. Let me start this again. Here we go.
My whole thing with Lamar Jackson has been this. He is the greatest dual threat quarterback to ever play this game, bar none. You can do things on the football field, Lamar Jackson, that nobody has ever been able to do. That's your skill. That's not your deficit.
Oh, I got to pause it right there. Lamar Jackson's legs is his skill. It is not his deficit. So the next time somebody tweets at you, Lamar B, with the capital RB at the end, you reply back. We got to make a meme of it. That's his skill, not his deficit. And who cares what they're trying to imply? They're trying to imply he can't throw. We know he can, and we know opponents respect it now, which is why the Eagles had 2 safety high all last game. They were more afraid of him making an explosive play with his arms than they were with his legs, as we can see with the way they played defense. Who cares about those tweets? Lamar Jackson's legs are his skill. It's not his deficit. Now, again, I am not advocating that we go back to 2019 under Greg Roman. I'm not advocating that. You absolutely must marry a run game with the passing game. Lamar's going to have to throw. We need him to throw. We need those explosive plays. We do not need to go to the extremes and say he can only run or he can only throw. He can do both. But I think the pendulum has gone a little bit too far to where, as his mom said, he wasn't taking those lanes. Let's continue with Cam Newton.
Do not allow other people, and it's easy for other people to critique a game that they didn't even play. Let me say that again. It's easy for people to critique a game, and most of the time, they didn't even play it. It's for them to say, you can't play the game of football like that. You can't play quarterback like that. Hey, you didn't even play quarterback. But just because you got one of these, and just because you got a platform, and just because you got a Twitter account, and just because you got a comment, you think you know about football. So his mom can agree to this. Lamar, bro, be you and do you. Because even though you know that you have to get other people involved in the game, bro, you got something that a lot of people wish that they had.
Wish.
The uncanny ability to get the home at any time. You're the only person probably in history that can really be successful by just dropping back and being blind and just saying, you know what, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, boom, let me scramble. And probably can be successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a skill. That's not a deficit.
Cam Newton dropping bars right there. That's a skill, not a deficit. How did we get to this place where people are ashamed that he can run? Now listen, as we've been advocating for Lamar to take off more, I would like to see some more reads, as Ken McCusick very well said last week when he was on the show, that the mesh point between Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is the most dangerous weapon in the NFL. Not only do you have Lamar who can do that, but you've got this battering ram right next to him. Do the Ravens have offensive line woes? Absolutely they do. The Ravens offensive line, by all grades and measurements that you can look at, is average. Average. And against elite teams, average offensive lines get gobbled up. And we saw that against the Eagles. So we understand that. We definitely understand that. It makes the job for both Lamar and Derrick's harder. Their job is harder because they have an average offensive line. But that's why what Cam Newton is preaching is even more important. Because when the lane is there, you take it. Todd Monken, use that mesh point to help the offensive line out. Even if tomorrow John Harbaugh were to substitute Ben Cleveland in for Fafa Alele, and believe me, because I've been preaching this since training camp, I wanted Ben Cleveland in there, I would be celebrating from the rooftops. But even if that happened, that doesn't make this offensive line elite. I think it would make them better, but not elite. Okay? So help the offensive line out, Todd, Derrick, and Lamar, by using the most dangerous weapon in football, which is the mesh point between these two greats. And when things break down, take the running lanes. Now, I thought Cam Newton's co-host asked him a very important question. He said, Cam, you're a coach. You've got this 7-on-7 team. You've been in the NFL. How do you balance between running the scheme, running the play, and then leaving it behind when it's not working, or if you just see something else and you just go and take it on your own? He had a great answer. He starts dropping bars again. How do you balance those two things? How do I balance going through my progressions? Because remember, in that clip, Lamar said, my mom is right. At the time, I was just going through my progressions. I was trying to allow my guys to make a play. So when do you know when to do that versus just taking off? Here's Cam Newton. He's got a bright red line for Lamar Jackson or anybody else with that question.
And I completely understand what he's saying. Man, I want to go through my full progression. But when it's resulting in losses, that progression.
Yeah.
Let's win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell my players on my 7-on-7 team, don't be robots. Mm-hmm. We have a real program. We have a real system. We have real plays that we kind of go off of. And I tell players all the time, and even former players who I played alongside with that was trying to learn the playbook all the time, I was like, bro, don't be no robot. See what the play is asking you to do and put your own pizzazz to it. If you're Lamar Jackson, your full progression has to be your full progression unless it impacts winning and losing. If what you're going to do, go rogue, scramble, if it's going to lead to us winning, nobody's going to complain. Because you said, Coach, man, I just saw it. You're playing football. You're a football player, not a robot, not Pinocchio. You're a football player. Allow your greatness to take over within reason of the scheme. Don't overthink it. And there's times where I've seen Lamar Jackson overthink things. And I'm like, bro, you got something that a lot of people don't got, and I share it again. You got the ability to get on. You don't think Brady or Manning or Breeze or Matt Ryan, like you don't think? You don't think Patrick Mahomes sometimes don't be willing to get the fuck on? Joe Burrow with that offensive line that they got to get the fuck on.
Who you telling?
Come on, bro. So I get it. But this is more or less about the supporting cast and having guys and gals in your corner that's going to keep it a buck with you.
There it is, the bright line. How do you know when to continue to go through the progressions, do what the play's supposed to do, stay within the scheme, give your wide receivers a chance? And he says, if you're losing, F the progression. That's, he's right. You're not winning right now with it. You're not winning right now with it. Now, again, this is not to say, throw all caution to the wind. He even says that. You do as much, you be you as much as you can within the scheme. And if the scheme isn't enough to get it done, whether it's because the offensive line breaks down or somebody's not getting open or somebody drops a catch, whatever it is, if the scheme isn't getting it done, run. And I made this point last week. That doesn't always mean hero ball. You could try to play hero ball when you're sitting back there and you're trying to win everything with one throw downfield. It's like Lamar Jackson is dodging all this pressure back there, has 8, 9, 10 yards of grass, and he could have taken it after he dodged all these defensive linemen coming at him, but instead he stays behind the line of scrimmage, again, hoping to throw it over everybody and hit a touchdown in that one pass. That can be hero ball too. It's not hero ball just because he's running. It's hero ball when you're trying to win it in one play. Okay? So go ahead, take off, in Cam Newton's words, F the progression if the scheme isn't getting you the win that day. If the scheme isn't advancing you that day, then F it and become what nobody else in the league can be, which is Lamar Jackson. Not even Cam Newton puts himself on that level. Michael Vick puts Lamar Jackson ahead of him. Use it. It's your skill, not your deficit. Let's get some reactions here in the super chats. Lots of reactions now. Here we go. Mike Walker. Cam was preaching, I think he meant to say. Cam was preaching. Daniel Kelly, any word with the whole field goal unit? I don't know what that means. Like, do you mean like the snapping, the holding, all of that? Not quite sure what your question is, but up until now, I don't think anything has changed on the field goal unit. Blair Davis says, is Andrew Voorhees eligible to play again? He's always been eligible. He's on the roster. Now, I will say this, and I do put some weight in this. Two guys that study the offensive line in Baltimore the most, Cole Jackson and Ken McCusick, who I just had on Friday, based off of Ken McCusick grades every single offensive lineman on every single play. Nobody's watching it closer. Nobody. He's got a whole grading system. Based off of what he's watching, even though McCary's had all the penalties, he says he personally wouldn't put in Andrew Voorhees over McCary right now. The change he would make would be at right guard, but not at left guard. I don't know. That's something. Andrew Voorhees was benched, and he hasn't been brought back despite all those penalties, but McCary better clean it up. He's capable of cleaning it up. Keep your hands on the inside, and then let go when they get past you. Easier said than done, but those are the bright lines. Jemmy 93, Chiefs luck runs out in the postseason. Calling it. Hope you're right. Olu says, say it again, Sarah. LJ8 can on ground or air. He can certainly take over through the ground or air. Whatever the defense is giving you, take it. Marone Brown says, love this episode. Appreciate that. Love you and appreciate your super chat. Lauren Wonderlook says, just want to say, Sarah, you crushed it all week. I appreciate that. I have to say, I'm excited for Bobby to get back. It is I know he does it for me too. It is a beast to put together an hour-long show every single day. I can tell you that much. Okay. Jemmy 93 says, if we do not score a lot on New York, I'd be concerned. Mike Walker says, the Ravens can take a punch. Just stop the mistakes. Amen. All right. Here's another one from Evan. Is it fair to put any of Lamar's reluctance to take off and his issues balancing throwing versus scrambling on the coaching staff? I don't know. Like at this point, I would say it's unfair in terms of scrambling. Only because based off of everything that we're hearing from everybody, it's that Lamar's being empowered. We've got the car. He's got the keys to the car. They've empowered him with audibles. They've empowered him at the line of scrimmage. They've talked nonstop about how Lamar, that they trust in him and the decisions that he makes. He knows better. They talk about his vision, all of that. I haven't heard or seen anybody or anything say, we don't want you to scramble. I have not seen any of that. Now, can you put on Todd Monken maybe not having as many designed runs where he and Derrick Henry are having more mystery at the mesh point, where they're reading options of what to do? You could put that if they're not putting more of those play calls in there. But the scrambling up to this point, I just feel like he's been empowered. And by the way, it's what made offenses respect his arm more. Like last year, this was the emergence of that. It was like, okay, everybody's finally respecting his arm. And now this year it's become so much that the Eagles play 2 safety high. And again, they had the personnel to do that because they have the defensive line that can handle it with 4. But the lanes were there from time to time, as Miss Felicia Jones pointed out. So I don't think it would be fair to do the throwing versus scrambling on the coaching staff. And Lamar said it himself. He's like, okay, my mom's right. I'm going to go do it. He didn't have to go ask permission from Todd. He didn't have to go and say, hey, let me go check with Harbaugh first. He's like, I'm going to go do it. And so we'll find out whether that happens. We'll see if he even needs to do it against the Giants, but we'll see if that happens over the next 4 weeks. Leslie Jean, thank you, says, love your energy. Always make me feel better about the Ravens. Good. Appreciate that, Leslie. Hope I'm not giving any false hope, but it's just some just my thoughts that I genuinely have. All right, let's hit some quick hits and let's get moving out of here. Real quick, I always forget to take the last one off. Jamison Hensley tweets, the Ravens are currently 15-point favorites at the Giants per ESPN Bet. This would be the NFL's largest point spread of the season. The only time Baltimore was favored by more in the Lamar Jackson era was 2019, when the Ravens were 17-point favorites versus the Jets. The Athletic put together some anonymous player polls. I wish they had asked better questions. They had asked the players who will be the next active NFL player to win his first MVP award. Well, yeah, Josh Allen seems like, or Joe Burrow seems like 2 great picks. I wish they had asked who do they think earned it so far this year. But yeah, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, certainly some obvious answers there. Which stadium has the best field surface in the NFL? M&T Bank comes in at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. And I know the Ravens take pride in that. I was working at the Ravens when the players came to then President Dick Cass and Steve Bisciotti and the coaches and all that. They used to have a turf playing surface. At the request of the players, the Ravens invested a lot of money to move to grass fields. And the ground crew is there all the time trying to make it as pristine as possible. Doesn't surprise me that it's number 5 in the league. Most annoying players in the NFL. The guy that wins it by a landslide is C.J. Gardner-Johnson, then Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby. Certainly annoyed me earlier in this year against the Ravens. But boy, would I love him on my team. Brendan Graham, Jamal Adams, and then Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is super annoying, and for the Chiefs in all the best ways, for the opponents in all the worst ways. Who are the top 3 players you take on your flag football team? How Lamar Jackson is number 3 on this list, I do not know, but I do got to give it up to Tyreek Hill. I'm sure he'd be a phenomenal flag football player. Justin Jefferson, number 2, and then Lamar Jackson. If you remember, Lamar Jackson, I'll play the video here in a minute. There's a video going around of him playing with kids, and he was like in the middle of a sea of kids, and he just kept getting out of it. The video, which I'm going to play in a second, Lamar Jackson quote retweeted with a laughing emoji and says, "I was just messing around. Let the flag players have their league. But if these flag players ever feel like us NFL players are not that, let me assemble the squad." So he's saying if any flag players think that they're better than the NFL players at what they do, I'll go ahead and assemble the squad. But if we want to call it a truce, I'll go ahead and do that. But here Lamar is against those kids. Look at this. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 2 spin moves. Missed a fourth kid. Look at these kids running after Lamar. They're trying. Look at him. Like, how do you catch that man? All those spin moves. Again, they're kids. I get it, but that was hilarious that got out there. So yeah, I would take Lamar Jackson. I would take Lamar Jackson on my my fantasy league. I'd keep him on. I'd take him on practically any team that I have. Okay, Jonas Schaefer reported over the weekend that Ravens cornerback Jalen Armour Davis was fined $6,528 for unnecessary roughness for a face mask grab versus the Eagles. He wasn't flagged for the play. It was on a either a kick or punt return. I can't remember. This is another funny Lamar. So on TikTok, somebody put up a video of Lamar in a corner store market. And here, let me just play the video for you. He's just an everyday normal guy. It doesn't matter that he's made millions and guaranteed money. He's like, he's certainly like me, because I would do something like this.
Oh, bro, tell him don't touch what?
That's what I did, miss. I ain't missing the guys coming down.
Yeah, don't touch the bag of G.
If I put it back here,
hey!
don't reach back here for the shit. You go too much. Grab the water.
Grab the
Grab these. Grab everything. Don't touch the shit.
Don't touch my
That's
shit.
right there, good bro.
Appreciate it.
Don't reach in the back. So for the audio only people, Lamar Jackson has a drink that he really likes, and it's the last one there. He doesn't want anybody else to get it. Wants him to buy water. So he puts his favorite drink in the back, hoping it hides it from other customers that may be coming along to buy it. Now, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit that I've done that before. You want to preserve your drink. But I also mostly did it in my house. So you guys know I'm one of 7 kids. So when my mom would come home from the grocery store, you wanted to be the person there and hope that none of the other kids are there. Because those Chip Ahoy cookies or the Oreos or your favorite Doritos or whatever it is, that's gone within an hour of mom coming home from the grocery store when you're one of 7. So one time mom came home and I got to those Chips Ahoy cookies first. And we had, I think it was given to my parents from my grandparents. They had like this old school, like grandfather clocks, one of those clocks that you could open up. It was very weird. So I would open it up, and you better believe the second I saw those Chip Ahoy cookies and no other kids are around, I hit it in the bottom of that clock, and I was snacking off of it for like a good 2 weeks. But one time I went in there to get some cookies out, and my brother was coming down the stairs, caught me. It was a problem. So me and Lamar, I get it, Lamar. I get it. You got to preserve your favorite drinks, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to keep it around. All right, let's see what else we got here. Happy birthday to Nick Moore. His birthday is today. And much love to him, and dreams, much love to you. I know you said you had a birthday over the weekend. So that about does it. That's all the quick hits. Do I have anything else? Flag football? No, I got it all. So that was the bye weekend. Ravens come out of it looking decent, looking pretty good, moving up in the seeding. But obviously, with the Steelers win, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But the Ravens can still get the job done. So come out, beat those Giants, and then give an unfriendly welcome to the Steelers, and then we can regroup from there and see where their true playoff picture lies. So, all right, guys, that ends Solo Sarah Week. That ends it. Bobby should be en route. Coming back to Baltimore. And I believe John Harbaugh, He should be speaking later today. I haven't gotten the email yet from Ravens PR, but I believe he should be speaking today. And so all eyes move forward. I just want to say at the end of this Sarah Solo week that I appreciate all you guys. I feel like I've been supported every step of the way. Sometimes when I'm messing up on the technology or if I've been a few minutes late to the show, get a couple fun jabs, but I appreciate your guys' support. I feel like it was a good week. It's crazy how it already feels like it's been a minute since the whole Deontay Johnson news, him being suspended. So that'll be news going forward. Is he going to get a chance to play going forward? Is this salvageable? Are they going to end up having to cut him? What's going to happen there? But more than anything, they just need to get the offense right, and Justin Tucker needs to get right. Keep the defense going. And if they can put it all together, we've all said it. Nobody can stop the Ravens except for the Ravens. Appreciate you guys. I'm reading the comments now. Appreciate you. Can't wait to have Bobby back. It's always better to have two perspectives. Bobby and I don't always agree, although we agree on a lot. It's much better to have two perspectives. I know that he gives a different voice from mine. And so hopefully we can find some things to debate on in a fun and happy way. One more time, let me give a shout out to our patrons. See, I remembered in the beginning and the end. So I got you. Christian Almgren and Jimmy Rice. Thank you so much for supporting us and everything that we do. So you guys, I will be back here in less than 24 hours with news from the John Harbaugh press conference, if it is indeed today, I believe it is, and with Bobby Trossett. Love you guys. See you then inside the vault in less than 23 hours. Have a great day.